Hi guys, Nerdy Perkins here. Since there is no chapter coming this week because of Golden Week in Japan, I thought I would do a video just giving some of my predictions of what's going to be happening in the Whole Cake Island arc. So we'll just start off with something that was revealed last chapter, which is that it seems all but confirmed that Pudding is the three-eyed girl that we saw way back when in Fishman Island when we got our first glimpse of Big Mom. So the picture we saw had a girl who looks very, very similar facial-wise to the three-eyed girl, and the hair is conspicuously covering the portion of her head where the third eye would be. Now, I was just kind of trying to think of what kind of things could be connected to the third eye, whether it might be a devil fruit ability of some kind, maybe some kind of psychic power, like the ability to see the future in some way, or like telepathy maybe, something like that, or maybe that's just how she was naturally born with three eyes. Yeah, then my next thing was that the Sunny crew has now completely run out of food, and it seems that Oda may have been giving us a hint as to something that's going to happen with them, which is if they are traveling to Big Mom's island, it's likely they're going to see a couple of these tart lookout posts that we saw in the last chapter. So it seems like it could very likely happen that the Sunny crew sees one of those and decides to go after it because they're just starving and they don't have any food to eat. That's a possibility, as well as them possibly just getting on a whole cake and just starting to eat pieces of the island if the island is in fact made all of food and sweets. But we'll just have to see about that. That's just a prediction based off this last chapter. Another thing that I'm predicting will most likely happen is we should finally get some clear answers as to whether or not the Viver card that Lola gave Nami is in fact one for Big Mom. That's been a prediction for like a really, really long time. A lot of people have thought this, and if that is the case, it may likely help the Straw Hats get on Big Mom's good side, seeing that they've already helped one of her children. Now, getting into some more juicy stuff, I have a feeling that, and I think a lot of people have the same feeling, that the primary villains of this arc of Whole Cake Island is not likely to actually be Big Mom, but Capone and Germa 66. I have a feeling that Capone may betray Big Mom. He may have joined her crew specifically to get in with her so that he can stab her in the back and take up her position of Yonko. The question with that is, if that is the case, would Germa 66 be involved in this plot? It could be that the case. My one question with that is, what would they gain by helping Capone gain this position? Maybe territory or weapons, information. I doubt they'd be after the Road Poneglyph, but that's always a possibility. They may also have some form of grudge with Big Mom, but then I don't know why she would arrange a marriage unless it's trying to patch up that grudge. Now, this whole theory comes from the fact that the Capone in real life ended up betraying a gang leader named Big Jim, and the plot was, I believe, headed by Johnny Torrio, who took over Jim's gang. So I'm thinking maybe Sanji's father is taking the place of Torrio, where he's kind of the mastermind behind this, and Capone is being used as a gunman to take out Big Mom for him. And once again, this is all just like speculation at this point, but it's just, if Germa 66 ends up being a villainous group, then I don't see how they would end up being on Big Mom's side while also being antagonists if Big Mom in fact becomes an ally of Luffy, which I think is likely to happen. And we've already seen that Capone is not a very loyal guy. He just shot down Peckham's for like a very, well, for getting personal basically, but he's shown that he's ruthless and willing to just take out someone just to get his way, basically. Yeah, so I'm curious to see if that turns out being the case. Next thing I'll go over is possible fight pairings. We don't have a lot of information about who the crew is and everything that the Straw Hats are going to be facing off against, so I don't have a lot to go off of. But one that I'm really certain will most likely happen would be Sanji versus his father. This seems really obvious pairing since Sanji obviously has had a falling out with his father, and we also haven't really seen a father versus son battle. There's been a couple things that are similar to that, but this would be something a bit more personal and a bit more, like, crazy to see. The next thing I think is very likely, especially if it turns out that my prediction that Capone ends up being more of the big bad as opposed to Big Mom, would be Luffy versus Capone. This, like I said, depends on whether or not Big Mom ends up being the overall villain or not. I would really, really love to see Luffy finally fighting one of the supernovas, since so far, since they've been introduced, we haven't really had them in like a major antagonistic role other than Law at the beginning of Punk Hazard. So I'd really like to see that. The other ones, and these ones I was less sure of because, like I said, we haven't seen any of Big Mom's crew to any extent other than Peckham's and Baron Tomago. Which I think that might be a good pairing, would be Peckham's versus Tomago, which is just Big Mom versus Big Mom crew, basically. Other people who I think will likely be fighters will be Sanji's brothers. I think if they're at the wedding, they are likely to have some fights going on. I think Brook would make sense as a pairing with one of them, since he seems to have some kind of history with the Vinsmokes, which I'll get to in a little bit. My other thought against the Sanji, one of Sanji's brothers would be Pedro or Carrot, possibly. This would be a nice highlight. I assume that Sanji's brothers are going to be very adept fighters. So it'd be fun to have a really cool fight with Pedro between one of them. My next one would be, in this one, finding someone for Vito to fight was a bit tough. I'm thinking maybe Chopper, and my thought on that is that Chopper has his monster point, which he can use, and Vito's guns are conveniently called kaiju pistols or monster pistols. So that it would be maybe a good pairing, and I'm assuming his pistols are probably used against larger enemies, so that would be a good fight pairing. The last one I think is probably the least likely of all these, which would be Pudding versus Nami. And I just put underneath in my notes, a battle for Sanji's heart. Like I said, this isn't very likely to happen. Well, if Big Mom ends up not being an antagonist. But who knows, Pudding could want to fight against the crew who's trying to basically stop this wedding from happening. Depending on her feelings on the wedding. She may not want to go through with it at all, but we don't know that quite yet. Next up, I really, and I've mentioned this in my Zoe discussion, I really want Carrot and Pedro to teach Chopper how to do the Electro, if it's possible for him to learn it. I think it would really give Chopper a nice edge to his attacks, and kind of add to his arsenal. That's the word I was looking for. Next is just thoughts on Big Mom's devil fruit. Now, I know a lot of people have been thinking it may perhaps allow her to make objects or maybe even people into food, or that it could be something like bringing objects to life, which is a prediction from the fact that the ship that Peckham's was riding on previously seems to be sentient. It seems to be able to talk and sing, I think, is what it was doing. The one thing that I'm not sure about is whether her acid saliva has something to do with a devil fruit power, or if that's just a bodily function of hers. If it is tied to the devil fruit, she might have in the acid fruit, which I assume would function very similarly to Magellan's poison fruit. I really doubt this is the case, though. I don't know how much like battle use an acid fruit would have. Obviously, it's very corrosive, but I don't know how much fun Oda could really have with that fruit. If you have any thoughts on that, comment below or something like that. Now back to kind of talking about Brook. Brook seems to have some sort of connection with the Vinsmokes. We do know that Brook was formerly part of a royal guard or something to that effect before joining the Rumbar Pirates. So I'm definitely in the camp that believes that Sanji's family members in some way, or just Germa 66 in some way, was involved in killing some part of the royal family that Brook was in charge of and serving under. Now, it could be something different. It could just be that they're from the same blue, and there's just rumors going around in that blue, even while Brook was alive, that of this secret organization of these warlords, basically, or warmongers, I think is the term. And my thought when I was writing this down was that depending on Sanji's father's age, so Sanji's in his early to mid-20s, if his father is like 60 to 70, maybe even late, like not late 50s, that wouldn't really work out with the timeline, but if he's basically over 60 years old, he may even have been personally responsible for or involved in the taking down the royal family that Brook was in service to. This is really unlikely. It's more likely that Sanji's grandfather would be involved, but I was just thinking about the math, and since Sanji has two older brothers, and if his father had him when he was around like in his 40s, I think the timeline could kind of work out where as a younger man, his father could have had some involvement in it. Because I was just trying to think of the math, and I think that Brook and his crew were killed off 50 years prior to the current events in the series. So yeah, if he was like 60 or 70, that would put him in the like 10 to 20 range during the time when Brook was alive and before Brook was with the Rumbar Pirates. Yeah, and my other thought on that is it's possible that we might get a Brook flashback in this. It seems unlikely, and just to move on to my next note, it seems more likely that we'll get a Sanji flashback in some way, and this seems extremely likely since we're finally meeting Sanji's family and learning more about that, and I'm assuming we may get a flashback that involves his falling out with his family and how he ended up on the ship that made the journey all the way to the East Blue and inevitably got attacked by Zeph and thus landed him where he was when we first met him. Yeah, I really think this is likely, and it will be really cool to get some more Sanji backstory. I am really curious as to like how he got onto this ship and how it ended up getting to the East Blue, because as Brooke mentioned before, that would involve crossing the red line. And the only way we really know that that's possible, other than going underwater to Fishman Island, would be passing through Mary Joa. So Sanji may have been in Mary Jo at some point. But once again, I think we'll likely find that out in a flashback. Yeah, and I just have really one more thing, which is, could Jembe finally come back into the story and join the crew? I think this has been what a lot of people have been speculating, that Jembe will show up with the poneglyph that he's carrying to Big Mom's island, because it seemed that when he left Fishman Island, that was where he was headed. He seemed to have some unfinished business with Big Mom, mostly going over exactly what happened and why basically Luffy declared it as his territory, basically taking it from Big Mom, which may cause a rift with Luffy and Big Mom, but it could also give them a reason to kind of join forces, since she did seem to want to help Fishman Island, even though it was more about, I think, the special candy that Fishman Island produces than anything else. Trying to think if there's anything else I really wanted to cover here. Yeah, other than that, like, some final thoughts would be just some things on Pedro and Carrot. I know a lot of people are really for one of them or both of them joining the crew, which I think would be really cool. It's tough to choose between them because you have Pedro, who's just super cool and suave and another swordsman, and would just really fill a nice role for like a stealth type crew member, which I know Sanji kind of fills that role, but be nice to have someone who is more specialized in that. And then you have Carrot on the other hand, who's just so damn adorable and, you know, just like so fresh-faced and new to like the whole seafaring experience. I mean, both of them are going to be around for a long time because they're going to be sticking around with the crew for Whole Cake Island, and I'm betting that we're probably not going back to Zoe between Whole Cake and Wano, so they will probably be going to Wano as well and be involved in that arc. So I don't know if debating whether or not they're going to be in the crew is even worth it, since they will be around for such a long time. Similar to how Law was around for like 2 to 3 years with Punk Hazard and Dressrosa. So they may just end up being part of the Mink division of what could possibly be another group for the Straw Hat Grand Fleet. Because I think that's likely that the Minks may join that in some way, shape, or form, whether it be officially or just as allies like Dressrosa, Alabasta, and all the other countries that the Straw Hats have inevitably helped at some point. Yeah, that's about it for the moment. If you like the video, go ahead and give it a like, and subscribe to the channel. I'll put a little annotation somewhere around here that you guys can click on to subscribe if you'd like. I post a lot of One Piece content, and I've been trying to start doing more anime and manga content like My Hero Academia, and have been looking for some more stuff to post as well, so keep tuned for that. You can follow me on Twitter at nerdy_Perkins. I post all my content there, and yeah, there's other places you can find me down in the description below. But yeah, until next time, guys, stay nerdy.